long-term data shows that drinking ionized alkali water actually causes a lot of issues with your health, specifically with your GI system.
The easiest health hack is to get a super high quality water filter.
A lot of people think you need toothpaste. You don't actually need it.
Have you seen or heard about this hydrogen fad that's going on? Hydrogen water, hydrogen bottles, hydrogen pills, supplement type things that a few famous influencers are sort of banging on about and, of course, likely profiting from in a big way. Whether you have or haven't heard about it doesn't really matter, because this conversation either way will blow your mind, because I speak with a molecular hydrogen expert on what even is hydrogen therapy. Is it a good idea? What diseases and health situations can it actually fix? And we also debunk a few marketing lies around these products as well, which are told every day in advertising and on social media. And there are plenty of them. So if you want to get well, fix your body, and feel fantastic in a way that you've probably heard nothing about, then this episode is absolutely worth listening to. What's up, my healthy friends? I am here with the guy named or known as Greg the Hydrogen Man, who is going to bring us up to speed with hydrogen water and H2 conversation. And that conversation seems to be littering my social media these days, and I think broadly popularized by Gary Brecka. So Greg, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Doing great. You were already getting into the hydrogen thing, and I was just going to say the one thing, we're going to talk about something that nobody talks about in the world of hydrogen, and that's actually how to make it safely and use it safely, because nobody's talking about the safety part. And in my personal opinion, it's huge, because it took me a long time to realize this. I've been studying the subject for a very long time, even when as far as going to Japan, the study about it. And because hydrogen is clearly amazing for you, we could talk about all the health benefits, and I can go into everything that I've ever seen. But the part that nobody talks about, and this is including Gary Brecka, and I wish that he did, but in my personal opinion, he's probably just not getting the best advice right now, is the safety aspect. Because he pushes those hydrogen pills. I'm sure you've seen those, the hydrogen tablet. I don't know if you've ever seen a lab test on what ends up in the water after you drop them, but maybe you should do your own independent lab tests. They're not that expensive, but
yeah, I have seen, because leading up to this conversation, I watched a lot of comparisons on YouTube and some data of people using those types of pills, and it seems like very little of the H2 actually ends up in the water that ends up in your body.
That's right. And I mean, my biggest concern, before I go on, I am going to say I'm not going to give any medical advice. I'm not making any medical claims. And I'm not making any claims for or against any products. But yeah, my biggest concern, because I was really sick, and technically I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. And it was very severe. And one of the things that I did to really overcome my medical conditions is up my purity of everything. So my water, I became a water expert. In fact, I have a third-party lab test here, pages and pages of stuff that's in our water, and it's crazy. No wonder people are so sick.
Yeah.
The water you drink is so important. And people think that normal water filters are going to do the job. I'm sorry, but they're not going to. I share all this information for free on my YouTube channel. You can watch video 388 to learn about how to truly purify water. If people want to see the equipment I use, it's at a website called mypurewater.com. And of course, people love discount codes. If they want to use the code, it's uprising144K. But that's really how you need to clean your water, in my opinion. That's why I have the data. But hydrogen, if you drop the tablets in the water, they're literally going to show, most likely, I'm not making any claims, but I've seen lab reports, and they show heavy metals. And why would you want that in your hydrogen? If you really learned about hydrogen, hydrogen's supposed to be odorless, colorless, tasteless, and pH neutral. And when you drop the tablets in the water, they're not odorless. They actually kind of stink. They're not colorless. They turn to the color like gray or metal. They're not tasteless. It actually tastes like crap. I've had a lot of my viewers who've tried the tablets tell me that they kind of hate drinking it. It feels disgusting. I remember one of the lab tests, a technician once told me that the glass beakers, they literally leave a residue on there that's so bad that they have to use acid to get it off. So I can't imagine what that's doing inside your body.
Yeah.
But but it's no offense to Gary Brecka. I just don't think he's very well informed on the subject. I don't think you probably saw that he promoted these type of bottles.
Yeah.
And from the moment I saw him do it, I knew that he was going to run into trouble. And he did. He's not promoting those now. He's on to the pills now. But I think in time he'll realize that's also the wrong way. And the only reason we know already is because Japan's way ahead of us. They've been doing hydrogen for much longer. We just started getting into it. And of course, whenever I do something, it's all about the best. And when I researched the best, it led to Japan. And I realized after all my research that hydrogen was amazing, but you have to learn about hydrogen production because it's like anything. It's like food. You can buy food that is all GMO'd, sprayed with herbicides, pesticides, God knows what, and depleted soils, or you could have food that has really nourishing soils, no chemicals. And both those apples or whatever it is, the food that it's growing is going to be different. And hydrogen's no different. The science of metals that is involved in doing it is very complex. I literally went to Japan to study hydrogen production methods. Every single method, I looked at every single one of them. And I found out that the number one machine to make hydrogen is a Japanese machine. What a surprise, because all the other machines are pretty much made in China. They don't like to tell you that. I've seen companies try to hide that. By the way, they try to hide the fact that they're made in China.
Well, and most people know that Japanese cars are extremely reliable as well.
Oh, way better engineering.
Yeah. All the kitchen appliances, the whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny that you bring up kitchen appliances because I saw so many in Japan. And I'm like, they're all made in Japan. Why don't we see those in America? All the stuff here is from China. And I don't know what the deal is, but something's not right. But when it comes to hydrogen, it's a whole other animal. And when you do it correctly, the things that I've seen, my recent testimonial was actually one about a Parkinson's patient who couldn't even walk. They actually couldn't even stand up. I just released video footage of him walking. He's doing my hydrogen protocol. There was a clinic that was using, I'm not going to name the equipment, but they were using definitely the wrong equipment, Chinese equipment, of course. And it just wasn't the best equipment. And they contacted me and they said, we're not seeing a lot of results. I said, you probably want to use the Japanese equipment. It's the best there is. And when they got that, the results were shocking. In fact, they were so shocking. I got pictures. I released videos about it. So how you produce hydrogen really does matter, both for safety reasons, but also for it to be effective and actually reliable. Most people don't know that these things just break. That's the whole reason that Gary Brecka got out of them. He realized that within 6 months, he said, my bottle wasn't producing any more hydrogen. And that's what happens with pretty much most of the equipment out there because of the lack of metal technology, the lack of membrane technology, just a lack of technology in general from these devices that are, whether it's from Korea, China, Taiwan, even Canada. But what you don't realize is all those parts are coming from China. They're all pretty much Chinese for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating story about the guy who created the Japanese machine. I don't know if you read his story, but man, that brought tears to my eyes when I read the story.
Well, I'm curious first, just to build a picture of understanding for the audience, because it's, people may have heard about this, they might not have. I mean, most people know that our water is H2O, so there's hydrogen in there, but most people did enough schooling to know that. And so I'm curious, two things. You talked about all of the stuff that's in the water. What is actually contaminating our water and why? Because most people believe that the systems we've got with our sewage and wastewater and cleaning the water, we live in first world countries, most of our listeners, the water should be amazing. So first question is what's wrong with the water and why is the hydrogen in that water not amazing?
Well, first of all, remember that hydrogen is a gas and oxygen is a gas. So H2O is, 2 parts hydrogen, which is molecular hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. These 2 gases turn to a liquid that we call water, right? Now, that doesn't mean that gas is now available to you, meaning it's kind of like drinking water and saying, well, why can't I inhale it? It's got oxygen in it. You can't inhale water, so we're talking about hydrogen in a gaseous form, right? We're not, it's already bound to oxygen in this water. So it's not really bioavailable to you as a gas. Right, that's kind of the first part of it. So what we technically do with my protocols is I'm dissolving hydrogen gas into the water, but not in a normal method. I'm doing it in a very different method than just about anybody else. I'm doing it the way the Japanese do it, which I found to be the most effective. Now, as far as the contaminants in our water, well, that would take us a long time because there's literally pages and pages of nasty stuff in our water from pharmaceuticals, pesticides, herbicides, forever chemicals, microplastics. I mean, the list is long. Some of the stuff that shocked me the most about what's in our water is this one right here. This one shocked the crap out of me. I didn't know we had radioactive contaminants in water.
Yeah, wow.
And in America, by the way. But I also didn't know that we can filter that out. That's why I suggested the website, mypurewater.com. It's carbon distillation. Basically, that's how I do it because the data backs it up. And then if you really think about it, who do you think contaminants in water affects the most?
Who does it affect the most? I mean, probably babies that drink, end up with it.
Yeah.
Breast milk, pregnant women.
Babies and children, basically, because their brains aren't fully developed, their kidneys aren't fully developed, their liver, on and on. So they're actually the most susceptible to being harmed by these contaminants, which is a problem. If you love your kids, get them clean water. I can't even begin to try to emphasize that a lot. The other part that we don't talk about is the pathogens in water. So we're talking bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, all sorts of different things, in our water. And again, carbon distillation will remove all that. Whereas normal filtration, no, it just won't do it. I know a lot of people claim it will. There's been some water filtration companies that actually got in trouble for making those type of claims.
Yeah, right.
And it turned out that wasn't actually, their claims weren't accurate. And then if I were to show you an example, I learned how to do this. I mean, all these techniques have taken me a very long time, but if I just show you one example, you ever heard of PFAS?
Yep. The
forever chemicals. So here's the levels that were in water. This is after carbon distillation. Look, 0 of everything.
And for those listening, like what a comparison of those numbers.
So like the PFOA, which is, they call them PFAS, there's a lot of different kinds. What they found was 26 parts per billion. And then after they ran it through the carbon distillation, it's at a 0. So eliminated over 99.9% of the contaminant. The other one was PFOS, another different type of PFAS, which was at a 7 parts per billion, again at a 0. But if we were to read off every page, there's so much. And so much of this you can't even pronounce, the chemicals. The other thing is water has, if you've done any research about pharmaceuticals in the water, you know what? 3 pharmaceuticals are the highest in water.
Which 3?
Antibiotics.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course. Antidepressants. And the last one was, women's contraception.
Yeah, that was my next guess.
Yep. So if you think about how that affects the body, women's contraception is going to mess you up hormonally. Antidepressants, I don't know if you've seen the latest data. Now, I'm not making a claim here. People can read about it. But it appears that possibly antidepressants may lead to Parkinson's and other neurological disorders. Not to mention, they found that a 20, 30-minute walk works better than just about any antidepressant, apparently. I'm not making any claims there either. And then antibiotics, you can imagine how that destroys your gut and most likely will lead down the road of becoming resistant to antibiotics. So when you really do need them for an emergency, you hope that they work as good as they should.
Yeah.
So clean water is hugely important in my protocols. And clean water doesn't resolve issues. To me, clean water is a preventative more than anything. And then it's the hydrogen that really brings on the power of, in my personal opinion, healing. I mean, if I could give you the examples, my father was a real good one. He had blood pressure issues, cholesterol issues, arthritis, diabetes, and glaucoma. It was pretty shocking, but my clean water and hydrogen protocol, all those issues disappeared.
Yeah, wow.
I remember it was amazing. His eye doctor, who had been going to for over 30 years, he has to get his eyes checked every year. And they were shocked when he was showing up negative for his glaucoma. They're like, wait a second. They didn't even believe their own results. They're like, we know that something's wrong because glaucoma doesn't just disappear. I've worked with people with macular degeneration, which is supposed to be something that just can't go away. And I've had multiple people have their macular degeneration go away. I worked with some people actually with the children of people who had dementia and Alzheimer's. And that was amazing. I released a video and a testimonial where the mother who didn't even recognize her own daughter was now recognizing her again, talking with her again. She was taking pictures throughout the process. You could literally see it on her face. The difference was so amazing. More recently, I worked with a woman who's almost 100 years old. She had multiple heart conditions. Her doctors had told her that they weren't even going to bother doing surgery. I mean, this woman's almost 100. And she was on pharmaceuticals for almost 40 years for like blood pressure, for example. And she got on my protocol because of somebody told her about me. And all her heart conditions went away, no surgery needed, and she had to get off the pharmaceuticals because her body was now working right. And I even published the email again on my YouTube channel from the doctor, the cardiologist, basically saying, what the heck's going on here? All her issues disappeared, right?
Yeah.
It's been so amazing, the things that I've seen. It's even hard for me to believe that this is basically accessible to most of us. And thank God for the Japanese man who developed this equipment. It is a sad story, but it was because of his daughter. His daughter was born with a very severe form of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. He was told she was going to not make it past the age of 3 or 5 years old, which is very sad. This was his first daughter. He never was going to get to see her go off to college or, go on a date or any of these type of things. And he wanted to use hydrogen for her based on the scientific studies that were being done in Japan. And he was told by his doctor that all the methods out there from, the bottles or all the methods out there that existed, the doctor literally said, you can't give that to your daughter. It could potentially actually not only harm her or end her life because of the lack of purity. And so he had to develop the purest hydrogen known to man, which was really an amazing story because he got help from huge industries, top engineers. He got help from Toyota, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
G-Shock, another Japanese big company, Yamaha, Kobe Steel. The Japanese science of metallurgy is phenomenal. And he developed the best hydrogen machine in the world that's literally super cheap. It's not like the next machine that's even close to it's about $30,000. And he made one that's better than that makes both the hydrogen water and the gas inhalation for like 20 something $100. I mean, it's darn right ridiculous how amazing it is for the price. And it saved my life too. I had a lot of medical conditions, including a heart condition also.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not even supposed to be alive right now because the doctor's like, your heart condition's going to end your life. Your heart's not working right. You need open heart surgery. And I tried all these devices when I first started learning about hydrogen, and none of them were working as far as making my issues go away. I almost gave up on hydrogen, but I'm glad I didn't. I realized that they weren't making hydrogen properly, in my opinion, based on my research. And then that's what led me to the number one machine in Japan. I thought, I'll give it a try, and thank God I did because it was the game changer. And it's been amazing ever since.
I'm curious. So firstly, totally agree on the water filter thing. I very much promote that to people, clients, listeners, that the easiest health hack is to get a super high quality water filter. What comes to mind every time I hear water filters is, I think because I have a bit of a podcast audience and a decent number of people that listen, I get pitched Kangen water very regularly. And I've never... I've looked into it a few times. I'm like, nah, I'm not convinced. And, so what are your thoughts on that? Because I hear that Kangen water touted everywhere as the greatest thing.
It's not. It's actually darn right ridiculous. I'll tell you the long-term research. So the whole reason that Kangen even looked good, and this is where people don't do very good research, is there's a huge difference between short-term data and long-term data.
Yeah.
And in the short term, the Kangen looked really good. And everybody kept saying it was because it was making alkaline water. Eventually, they realized that wasn't true at all. In fact, if you really wanted to make alkaline water, you could literally put baking soda in water and boom, you got alkaline water. No, it's so stupid. What they did realize is that the machines were by accident making a little bit of hydrogen. And they realized that was the whole benefit. But the Kangen does it all wrong because it directly electrolyzes the water, which is not a good thing, by the way. It creates more contaminants. You really don't want to do that. Pure hydrogen made correctly is what we call pH neutral. The Kangen is doing it all wrong because it makes the alkaline water. And there's already long-term data that shows that drinking ionized alkaline water actually causes, or it appears to cause, because I'm not making any claims, it appears to cause a lot of issues with your health, actually, specifically with your GI system. And the reason that is because your stomach is designed to be acidic, actually, okay? And it's designed to be acidic because it breaks down the food in order to absorb nutrients properly. But it's also highly acidic because it's designed to kill pathogens. So if you get a pathogen from your food or whatever, you can kill that off. And as you age, and this is a scientific fact, as you age, you make less and less stomach acids as you get older. Okay. Using something like Kangen will actually make that worse.
Yeah.
And that was one of the problems, not to mention that their filters, in my personal opinion, just suck. And I say they suck. I don't want to go into the details because I don't want to make claims, but here's the problem. Here's what I think you'll be very interested in when it comes to water filtration. Every single water filter out there, except for the method that I use, uses what's called a porous style water filter. And what that means is that you have a filter that has tiny little holes, like little pores. The water goes through there and it's trying to stop the contaminants, right, on the filter. Here's one of the major problems with that. And this is what water filter companies don't want to tell you. If they show you a lab test, the lab test comes from using their water filter when the filter is new. Okay. Now, let's say they tell you to change your filter every 5,000 gallons. Well, every 100 gallons, your quality of your water is getting worse and worse because the filter is getting dirtier and dirtier. Not to mention that they can start growing bacteria on the filters, growing potentially mold on the filters. And they're really not going to eliminate all the viruses, all the bacteria, all the parasites, things of that nature. The way that I found the answer to truly purifying water was I do a lot of my research where I observe nature. I read a lot of the scientific literature. I also look at ancient scripture to look for ancient wisdom on health. But the big one is observing nature. And I remember looking at nature thinking to myself, how does nature purify water? That was like my big question. And it's ironic that it starts with hydrogen because it starts with the sun or the star or, the light of our world. The sun hits the ocean and the water literally begins the process of ascension. It's basically becoming distilled. And I found in ancient scripture, ironically, how it talks about pure as a driven snow, pure as white as snow. I don't think people realize that snow is distilled water. And so then what I did is I went and looked at the actual laboratory tests. And that's when I realized that the process of distillation with the combination of carbon filtration, so the combination of both, that's why I call it a carbon distiller from the mypurewater.com website. That's what truly will clean your water. And it's a very different way of doing it. It, in my opinion, is by far the best way. And the quality will be like this every time. It'll always be the same because you're using the magic of water and the magic of the distillation process. But then people always like, oh my God, what about minerals? They lose their mind over minerals. But the problem with minerals is a lot of people don't understand the difference between what we call organic and inorganic minerals. And if you just look at a page on a book and you just see a certain mineral like zinc or something, you really don't know which one you really are getting.
Yeah.
And so I prefer to just clean it all off, get everything out of the water. It's very easy to mineralize your water. So I don't panic about that. I just want clean water. And then I use the super clean water as a carrier for super clean, best made hydrogen gas. And that's really been the magic. It's foundational to my protocol. Like I said, the things I've seen it do are unimaginable. I still can't believe the stuff that I witness quite regularly. In fact, a doctor, by the way, from the Mayo Clinic recently contacted me with imaging. He actually emailed me the imaging of a person who had a brain tumor or cancer. And they used the Japanese device, their website, the official company's website is called holyhydrogen.com. And they had used some other equipment and things were not going well. I'm actually very cautious about certain equipment out there because nobody knows how to produce hydrogen properly. This is not a subject that people study. And I've seen a lot of things that are very worrisome, but they used the best and they saw the cancer. They had the imaging. They sent me the imaging and it literally showed that the cancer went away, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to some of these doctors and there's going to be more stuff coming in the future in regards to all this.
So I'm curious too, because I have a default to looking at nature, looking at how the universe, the world, the earth solves problems and how we healed in the past. Because I think, capitalism for all its greatness is one of the problems in regards to why, societies or governments keep everybody fat, sick and dying. And maybe through conversations like this, we can solve that problem. But I guess my question is, looking at nature, the implication here would be that we are hydrogen deficient. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, in my honest opinion, yes. But I think the human body has a lot of deficiencies. It's one of the parts of my protocol again. So my protocol is partially clean water, definitely the right amounts of hydrogen, but also overcoming nutritional deficiencies, both nutritional as far as things like vitamins, but also things like minerals. And so those are all key points to my protocols in order to get the body where it needs to be. But I mean, we know the deficiencies. I'm a little surprised by most doctors because we know for a fact that deficiencies typically lead to disease.
Yeah. Like
if we have a deficiency in vitamin C, it leads to scurvy. And you don't need a pharmaceutical to fix scurvy. You just need to get your proper vitamin C levels, And so I think that it's really important to overcome all nutritional deficiencies. In my personal opinion, if somebody goes to the doctor and complains about something, if I were the physician, I would say the first thing I want to do is check to see what deficiencies you have. Because if we can fix a deficiency and it has something to do with the disease, then we don't need to put you on pharmaceuticals forever. But you and I know that's what they want. They want to put you on pharmaceuticals forever. So they probably don't test for deficiencies. But and hydrogen, on the other hand, again, I've seen this. I've done it with myself. I actually shocked this doctor that I've been going to that it appears that it makes your body, one, be able to absorb nutrients more effectively. That's one thing that I've noticed a lot with hydrogen. And the other one is that I believe that it's actually getting my body to produce a lot of its own nutrients, which sounds totally crazy.
Yeah.
But the reason that I bring that up is because the reason I was going to this doctor was because this has been years ago now. I was trying to fine tune my protocols. And one of the things that I wanted to fine tune was to see that if I had any nutritional deficiencies so that I could modify my protocols to overcome nutritional deficiencies. Well, I worked in the medical field for about 2 decades, and a lot of people don't know that in Western medicine, if I go get blood work, they're not going to call you to tell you the results. Typically, they only call you when there's a problem. Otherwise, they're going to be calling everybody, telling everybody, hey, you're doing great, or, too many patients. So they only call you when there's a problem. Well, I got a phone call from the doctor and I immediately got worried. I'm like, oh my God, why are you calling me? She's like, well, just relax. And I said, just tell me what you found. What did you find? I was really worried. And she said, we found nothing. Nothing's wrong. Just calm down. And then, of course, I'm like, then why are you calling me? Now I'm curious. I'm like, why are you calling me then if there's nothing wrong? She said, I got to tell you, in over 30 years of being a blood specialist and looking at people's blood, not one time in over 30 years, not once, she said, have I ever seen blood that looks like yours? She said, it's so unbelievable. She said, I had to call you. And then she does what a lot of doctors do with me. She opens up about their personal life. And she told me things that she would never want me to say her name. But she admitted to me, she said, look, I got a lot of patients and they're all sick and I can't help them. She admitted it to me. She's like, I've tried so many things and I can't fix these people. And my own daughter is sick. And I have my concerns about this. And she said, and even I have my own problems, she said. And she said, I really want to know what you're doing because it is crazy what I'm witnessing. And of course, at first I tried not to tell her because I was thinking, it's going to take hours to explain to you and you're going to ask why a million times. And I don't mind having this conversation, but I know where it ends. And typically the way it ends is, oh my God, I can't do that, right? It's too much work. But she wouldn't let it go. So I finally started. I said, well, look, I clean my water through carbon distillation. I take the best hydrogen there is in the world and I use it such and such way. I start, I didn't even get to the diet part yet as far as my diet. And she just stopped and she goes, well, hold on a second. She's like, my patients are not going to do that. They're not going to start cleaning the water the way you're talking. And I don't even know what this hydrogen stuff is. She was like, I thought it was just some pill. I thought you found a magic pill. And I'm like, no, it's not a magic pill. It's about really trying to prevent the toxins entering our body, whether it's from herbicides, pesticides, all these chemicals, stuff in our water, and just little things. There's little things that we can do in life. I could give you one of my health tips. I'll give you one of my health tips just so people realize the simple things we can do. When you first wake up in the morning, I always ask people, what's the first thing you do? And a lot of people, they're like, oh, the first thing I do is make a cup of coffee and have my coffee or whatever they tell me that they do. First thing I have is eggs and bacon or whatever. The very first thing that you should do, in my personal opinion, and I go off of data, is the Japanese discovered that we grow bacteria in our mouth while we sleep. And a lot of this bacteria is even cancer causing potentially. The very first thing I ever do in the morning is I grab a toothbrush with no toothpaste, just wet the toothbrush, brush your teeth literally for like 10, 20 seconds. It's really quick. And make sure to brush the inner surfaces of your mouth. So your cheeks on the inside, the roof of your mouth, your tongue, all the surfaces of your mouth, just with a brush and water. And that is a huge difference. A lot of people think you need toothpaste. You don't actually need it. And the reason I don't like to use it in the morning is because the very next thing I do, and it's the very first part of my protocol, is I drink clean hydrogen water. Get my day started like that because you're at your most dehydrated point at the beginning of the day. And so you really want to get started the body off right because the human body, and the medical industry knows this too, though they don't talk about it a lot, it literally won't run properly unless it's properly hydrated. And that's just all there is to it. You need proper hydration in order for it to function properly. So just that tip, it's free, it's fast, it's easy, really makes a significant difference. Because if you drink water or drink coffee, you're going to literally inadvertently swallow a lot of this bacteria into your GI system. And that's not the best thing that you can be doing. And so that's just one of simple protocols, that
I'm curious, going back to something you said before, as a nutritionist, you said that it seemed to you that consuming hydrogen meant that you're able to make your own nutrients. The sort of raw materials of that must have been coming from your diet and or the bones and organs.
Well, the reason it's interesting, the reason I came up with that theory was because when the doctor again looked at my blood work and she's like, how is this possible that you're literally not deficient in anything? She goes, that's bonkers. Almost everybody's deficient in something.
Yeah.
And I actually eat, so I don't like to go on about what I eat. People get really weird about it. But there's certain foods that I eat that are highly anti-parasitic. And so I'm really big on bringing down the amount of parasites in the body because the parasites will eat your nutrients, which is going to make you even more deficient. And then they crap inside of you, by the way, which creates even more free radical damage. So they're stealing your nutrients and they're creating more free radicals. And we know that free radical damage causes a lot of medical issues. It's one of the reasons that the Japanese think that hydrogen is so incredible for the body, because the way that it appears to help bring down, the free radicals in the body. Now, as far as the thing that you were bringing up, when the doctor saw this and then she asked me about my diet and I started telling her what I ate, she stopped me because she goes, wait, she goes, hold on. What you're telling me, she said, is impossible. She said, there is no way that you're eating like this. And she even guessed. She goes, what have you been doing this diet for like 6 months? I said, I've been doing it for over a decade. She's like, that's impossible. And I said, well, it's impossible, but you're looking at the blood work. She goes, I know, I can't believe it. And afterwards, I started thinking about it. I started thinking, well, how in the world do I have these nutrients if I'm not consuming certain foods that technically should have them? And then I found data that, the Japanese do research unlike anybody else I've ever seen. And they made some pretty decent discoveries about fiber consumption and hydrogen water, which are two things that I focus on big time in my diet, and how they affect the gut in such a profound way that the gut is making almost 40% of its nutrients. It's massive. And when I saw the data, I'm like, bingo, I think that must be what I'm doing, because it doesn't make any sense. Just the doctor literally said, this makes no sense. It's not possible. But I think that we as humans think of things very black and white.
Yeah.
We just think you need this amount of nutrients, you need to consume them. But we forget that the human body actually produces nutrients, And so if you give your GI certain things, then it can produce its own. Even things like a glutathione. Like, people were supplementing glutathione. I just think it's ridiculous, to be quite honest. It's stupid. But everybody wants to sell you a supplement nowadays because there's a lot of money. It's all about money. That's the sad part about this whole thing. It's all money driven. But my protocols and the things that I've been able to achieve, as far as not just for my own health, but other people's, it was so shocking to me because I use almost no supplements, like virtually none. And yet I have no deficiencies.
Yeah.
And so that's the big shocker, because I've seen people, and I did go down this road. You'd open up a cupboard and it's full of supplements. And then I started seeing lab tests on a lot of these supplements. Oh my goodness, there's so many contaminants in a lot of these supplements.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And you're swallowing all this stuff. And then I've had people try to recruit me, by the way. I've turned down a lot of companies because I will not share anything that I don't use or that I know is just not good for you. That's why I've turned down the companies that want me to sell bottles, the hydrogen bottles, or even the tablets. I will not promote anything that I don't personally use. And I only do the best for my health because my life was on the line. And so what I learned about supplements from people who tried to recruit me is they cut so many corners because that allows them to make bigger profits. If they were to put and make the best supplement possible, man, the margins are so small that the companies don't make that much profit. And most of the people involved just want to make money. And I've seen this in the hydrogen world. I've seen it in water filtration world. I've seen it in the supplement world. It's all over the place. It's all about money. And so on my YouTube channel, I share the stuff that I actually do. And there's very few products that I use, like very, very few. My carbon distiller to purify my water, my hydrogen generator, a really good blender, and just a few other little things. Nothing crazy. I don't have a cupboard full of supplements. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Parasite stuff because I'm in the middle of a Parasite cleanse right now. So I'm in the middle of, taking heaps of supplements, wormwood and walnut and all that kind of stuff that, in herb form doesn't taste amazing. But so it's funny you mentioned that. But I think it's interesting too, because whether we talk about supplements or whether we talk about nutrition, I think the interesting thing is we always end up at nature, and it's like, no matter how good the technology gets, it's our body that knows how to heal. And it sounds woo-woo to say, and it sounds a bit like, faith in God, faith in whatever, that it's like, oh no, the body can heal itself. And I get how it lands because I used to be a scientist that thought all that was ridiculous. But just as you described, like the body does create its own nutrients. That like B vitamins are called B vitamins because they're bacterially derived by our gut bacteria. That's right. It's like the body has all of the tools. We just have to put the right fuel in.
Yeah, and a lot of the garbage food that we put in is actually very bad for our GI system.
Yeah.
It's not helping your gut microbiome, to be at its best.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking about water. Well, antibiotics being in the water, how is that going to affect the microbiome? And so I give my body a lot of food I follow the Japanese.
Mhm.
And I follow the Japanese because they have the longest life expectancy of any industrialized nation in the world. I've looked at so much of their research, and one thing that I've noticed about them culturally is they highly value health in a way that I've never seen before. These people are so into their health, and they've done so much studies and so much research. I mean, it's the reason that we even know, for example, about nitokinase.
Mhm.
You know, everybody got so crazy about the nitokinase or nitokinase. I already knew about it actually before anybody did in America. I saw the data on there quite a while ago, and it comes from natto. Natto is a fermented bean, which, by the way, is amazing for your health. There's so much data on it as far as how good it is for you. It has almost the same amount of protein as beef, but it has so many other health benefits that come along with it. And I definitely use it quite regularly. And it's just amazing for you. And a lot of the foods that the Japanese consume are extremely healthy for you. But, you know, people these days, it's funny how they poo-poo vegetables, and I don't want to get in that whole argument. But I'll tell you one thing, the Japanese eat a lot of vegetables, my brother. They have such a variety, and also a lot of fermented foods, which are pretty amazing, but stuff that ultimately is really good for your gut microbiome. And we know the connection now between the gut microbiome and even the happy chemicals that are produced in the brain and how it affects our whole health. And it's huge. And you should see some of the latest data. Just watch, the next big fad that's coming is fiber, because the Japanese discovered that almost every single fiber from every different fruit and vegetable, nut, seed, all these different beans, everything else, they discovered that the fiber from each different food has these profound effects on the human body that led to a discovery, actually, a new discovery about the human body that we didn't even know about, no doctor knew about. And I've been implementing. So that's what I do, is I discover this data and I find ways to apply it into my life that is very inexpensive and that is easy. And I've been doing that. And I was actually tested. It was funny. There was a guy who runs this kind of lab. He had all this special equipment and he was like, I want to test the hydrogen man. Would you come in? He goes, I'll do it for free. And I said, sure. And I went in there, and when he tested me, it was really quite fascinating. I totally blew this guy's mind, because remember, I'm not even supposed to be alive. So I was like one of the unhealthiest people there was. And when they did the testing, he said, you are literally like one of the top healthiest people in all the United States. You're at under 1%. The number was, his machine literally showed me off the charts.
Mhm.
I was on the very edge that you couldn't go any farther. But the part that really blew him away, and you're going to find this interesting, he did all these different tests where they measured the gases that are coming out of your mouth,
Mhm.
which have to do with the gases that your GI, obviously has to do with the GI. And I remember on one of the tests, you would score between a 1 and a 5. And 5 was the worst. 1 was the absolute best. He said everybody he tested would either get a 4 or a 5, typically 5s. This guy was like, super jacked, super in crazy shape, super into his craft, really great guy too. And he said that the highest anybody had ever scored was a 3, which was him. And then when he tested me, I tested at a 1. And he didn't even believe it. He goes, no, something's wrong with the equipment. Hold on, let me recalibrate it. He redid the whole thing. He had me do it like 3 times. And by the time we were done, he's like, this is not possible. He said, oh, wait, I know. You're fasting, aren't you? And I'm like, no. He goes, when was the last time you ate? I was like, I don't know, 3 hours ago. And he's like, I don't know how you're doing it. And of course, he ended up getting really into the hydrogen, actually. He started trying to copy what I was doing. He ended up getting a carbon distiller to clean his water. He definitely got the same hydrogen generator I got. And he got heavily on the hydrogen after my results. He just couldn't believe. He said, what I'm seeing here, he said, I never thought I'd see this in my life. He goes, I can't even score these on my best day. I don't know how you're doing it. And he disagreed with the way I eat, big time. And I don't like to fight with people, but he was a big carnivore guy.
Mhm.
All he wanted to do was eat nothing but meat. And I believe in the ancient knowledge of the Japanese, which is they believe that you're supposed to eat with the seasons
Mm.
and that you're supposed to eat a huge variety, which the science shows variety is better anyway. And that you're actually supposed to eat different colored foods, which is really interesting. Different colors, different seasons. The Japanese, man, I'll tell you, when it comes to the understanding of diet, they're on a level I've never seen. And everything's supposed to be local. I was really surprised when I learned about their farming methods. Oh my goodness, the Japanese are probably the best in the world when it comes to farming. Absolutely elite farming. I actually went, it was so funny. I would go to their grocery stores and they'd literally have all the produce and they would have maps above the food. And I'm thinking, why is there a map with a little star and then a picture of a guy and this whole thing written out? And I was like, what the heck is this? All the food had the farmer that grew it, how it was grown,
I like that.
where it was grown. Dude, it was so next level. And all the food was from the local town. So I started realizing everything I'm eating is local here. And that's when I realized that it's something embedded within their culture. They don't live as long as they do for nothing because these people work so hard and they're so stressed out and all this stuff, but they do things on a level that America doesn't even have a clue. They really don't understand the elite knowledge that Japanese have about health. It's so next level. And water, the knowledge they have about water and minerals. Oh, you should see how they use all sorts of different types of water for different things. Like if they're going to make the rice, it's a certain type of water with a certain amount of minerals, blah, blah, blah. If they're going to use it for something else, they had all these different types of waters. They're absolutely masterful. And of course, they're the ones who discovered hydrogen. Of course, it would only make sense that they would make the best hydrogen machine in the world. But yeah, they're absolutely incredible people to learn from. And I've been learning a lot from the Japanese.
I'm curious. I spend, a bit of time in hyperbaric oxygen chambers. When you're talking about hydrogen, in gas form, and that's the important way to get it, I think about the hyperbaric oxygen chambers. How does it compare to that kind of exposure? Because the idea is, it's like we went back to the start of the conversation. It's the H2O is liquid in form most of the time, below 100 degrees, obviously. And so you separate those two. You've got oxygen gas, you've got hydrogen gas, and there's also people that I've had on this podcast that have talked about being able to, not that we're making any claims, I know, but significantly impact very chronic diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So, is it in the same neighborhood of what it does functionally or mechanistically, or because I'm still trying to understand how it works.
So this is very important, I think, to understand. Oxygen is oxidizing. Hydrogen has been shown to be an antioxidant. Okay. And this is actually super important because you do realize that the oxygen is larger than hydrogen. Mm-hmm. And why is this important? This is really important. Are you aware that the antioxidants all come in different sizes? Were you even aware of this?
Yeah.
So when you look at vitamin C, the size of vitamin C compared to the size of vitamin E, compared to the size of CoQ10, compared to the size of glutathione, on and on it goes. They're all different sizes. And the reason that this is important because hydrogen is super tiny. I mean, so tiny, they can literally penetrate the core of the mitochondria, and go anywhere in the body, okay? Trying to take something just some other type of antioxidant is like trying to put an elephant to the front door of your house. It's not going to happen, right? And so hydrogen is so permeable, and it's also non-oxidizing. That's why it works perfectly with just about, if you notice, most therapies are oxidizing. Oxygen is oxidizing, ozone is oxidizing, what's it called? Hydrogen peroxide is oxidizing. I mean, think about it. When you get a cut, you put hydrogen peroxide. Why? Because hydrogen peroxide is one additional oxygen molecule. It's H2O2, right? Oxygen kills things. It oxidizes. Mm-hmm. So when you put it on a cut is to kill a bacteria so that you don't get an infection or something, right? So oxygen kills things. Is there a benefit to that? Of course there's benefit to it, but it's very different than hydrogen. Hydrogen is the life molecule. To me, oxygen is not that it's not necessary, but you ask any medical professional, well, heck, you should know this. I could probably pull it up here too. You don't really want to put people on oxygen for very long. Mm-hmm. It's not good for them. If you're at a hospital and somebody needs oxygen, you don't want them to be on it very long. In fact, if they're on oxygen too long, and it doesn't take long, it only takes, I believe, about 3 days, the body starts to adapt. This is the reason that if you really take somebody highly intelligent or like a trainer for a pro athlete, they'll actually do the opposite. They're actually going to give you less oxygen to mimic, for example, high altitude training. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if you're supplementing oxygen in the body, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, you just can't do it very much or very often because the body will adapt to it and it'll literally stop making or start making less red blood cells because it's thinking, hey, we're getting a ton of oxygen. I don't really need to be making all this. In fact, it reminds me of like steroids. What happens when a guy starts putting steroids in his body? The body's like, oh, we have so much. We don't need to produce any ourselves. And then that whole joke of guys' testicles shriveling up to little raisins because the body's like, hey, I don't need to make it. It gets lazy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And we already inhale roughly 21% oxygen. We have plenty of oxygen in the atmosphere. That's why you can do things like the Wim Hof breathing method, which really gets your oxygen levels. I eat foods. Again, I really don't like to talk about diet because people's responses, but have you seen the data on the foods that you eat that allow you to absorb the oxygen more effectively in your body because of the way that it affects the pH of your blood? I don't know if you've seen the data
No,
on
I
this.
haven't.
This is already, you should read about it. It's already a fact. We already know it, And so hydrogen and oxygen are very different, but I do think that they're both necessary. I think the best example that I could think of, it reminds me of a Bible verse of all things. But of course, churches love to tell you, hey, give us 10%, right? They just want their money, But have you ever read the verse about the 10%?
No.
So I go and look it up. It's about farming. So it's basically saying that when you grow a crop, you take 10% and you give it back to the earth, and then it'll give you, 100-fold or whatever it is. It'll give you more. And the reason is because the death of that food that you grew actually is nourishing to the soil, right? So that you can grow more. So you need a certain amount of death in order to have more life. And that to me is one of the huge functions of oxygen. It is oxidizing. It's dangerous in some ways. For example, have you ever looked at the deep sea diving?
Not beyond the Titanic.
Okay. You're actually really going to like this one. This is fascinating. If you go deep sea diving, somewhere roughly around anything below 60 feet, you can't use the same tanks because a normal tank that you use when you're diving has a lot of oxygen in it. Okay. But the moment you go below roughly 60 feet, the pressures are getting stronger and oxygen becomes toxic to the body. It literally would kill you. And so, as I told you, oxygen's oxidizing and it is toxic in some levels, which is why you want to use it like intermediately fasting. You don't want to fast forever. You'll deplete all your nutrients. You'll eventually die and get sick.
Yeah.
But doing it here and there can be very beneficial. And that's the way that I view oxygen versus hydrogen, because hydrogen to me is the true life molecule. And what I mean by that, this is a great example too. The Japanese discovered that if somebody were to have a stroke, and this actually, again, goes back to another ancient verse in scriptures. You ever heard of the one that says life is in the blood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that.
Right. So if I put a rubber band around my arm and I'm not getting blood supply to my arm, well, what's going to happen to my arm? It's going to die.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so what they discovered, and this is crazy, if you have a stroke and you're not getting blood supply to a part of your brain, well, what's going to happen? That part of the brain's going to die, right? We already know that. What they discovered is if you get on hydrogen gas, now this is water, this is different than the water. The water and the gas have different benefits. I like to use them both. And the equipment that I like, the Japanese equipment, does both. So that's really important. But if you start inhaling the hydrogen gas, it'll literally go straight to the brain. Obviously, you're inhaling it. It will keep that part of the brain alive with no blood. Now, think about that for a second. Like, try to wrap your head around that.
For how long?
That is quite a long time, because I don't know the exact number, but I know it's a very long time, because they literally were having tanks and ambulances, because there's certain university hospitals in Japan using hydrogen. And so they would put the person on hydrogen, they would get to the hospital, and then they would restore blood supply back to the brain. Everybody was making a full recovery. It was like 99.9%. Like everybody was recovering.
Wow.
It was amazing. And I am working with some doctors here in the United States, actually, for utilizing this knowledge. In fact, it's funny that you're asking about hyperbaric chambers. This particular doctor is a hyperbaric chamber specialist and medical gas specialist. And he was so impressed by hydrogen. And of course, he found me because he noticed the data from Japan. And he really wanted to find the best, because everything else is so gimmicky these days. I hate to say it. You don't really know. You think you're talking to the real person when they're trying to sell you some tablet.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is what they're selling you. I mean, no medical university is giving, they don't make somebody pop a hydrogen tablet when they pick them up in the ambulance. That's just not the way it's going down. But, everything's about selling products these days in America. But I try to give, the best information that's accurate rather than just trying to sell stuff.
Well, just quickly before we sort of begin to wrap up, what are the risks of too much hydrogen? Is that even possible? Like, at what point does it become concerning?
I think the biggest concerns are just making it incorrectly. Because, for example, like, again, these bottles, you don't realize, first of all, these are made in China, right?
Yeah.
And they're using plated and coated metals. I don't know. Do you know what that means?
I guess that they're covered in metals that are toxic to us.
Well, basically, when you plate a metal, have you ever seen something that's gold plated? It looks like gold, but it really isn't pure gold. And then later on, sometimes it flakes off or whatever. And when you're running electricity with a plated metal, it's just not the smartest way to do it, is all I'm saying. And I'm really picky, especially when it comes to medical stuff or like my water. I don't want to do a half-assed thing. I don't want to like oh, I'll just use the water filter from the refrigerator. It's like, it's not going to, no, that's not going to be good enough. Not if you're trying to heal the body. You want the cleanest water you can get. You want the cleanest air you can get. And so, my biggest concern with hydrogen is the impurities. The impurities that can be produced. Like I said, drop one of these in water and then go get a lab test and see what you're going to find. But you will most likely, I'm not making claims, so I'm just saying it appears that you'll probably see, you'll have to do it for yourself and check, is heavy metals. And I've had people make the argument where, it doesn't have, the heavy metals are within safe range. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? Safe range? I mean, these are things that could potentially build up in our body. So just because one tablet's safe and then 2 tablets and then a month later and 2 months later and 3 months later, it's like, this is really the route you want to go on? To me, this is lunacy, actually, but that's what everybody's been really big about, including Gary Brecka, right? He's really big on these tablets, but it's because it only costs you $1 a day, right? And it's, right. It's like, I think each pill's $1. And so how many pills are you going to take? But you actually made a very smart point is they try to tell you that you gain so much hydrogen, but I agree with you. You're not getting the hydrogen you think you're getting. And so I just think that the pills, my personal opinion is, it's just a gimmick. It's just a way to sell something and sell something forever, right? You got to buy pills forever. I think that's why they love selling those type of products out there. But I've noticed that the high quality products that I buy, like when I get a carbon distiller that's made in America, that's high quality, the Japanese hydrogen generator, these things, they last like forever. I mean, they don't break. They're well made. And in the long term, ironically, the tablets actually appear to be the most expensive for the long term because you can be buying pills forever.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even take them if they were free, to be quite honest, but you take them forever. And when it comes to water and hydrogen, I just think the purity is extremely important. And so I'm more concerned about the byproduct. As far as your question, as far as getting too much hydrogen, the biggest concerns that I would have also are what conditions you might have. Like, for example, I'll give you an example because I've worked with people with, for example, high blood pressure. So let's say you're on medication. I worked with a woman. She's almost 400 pounds. You should have seen what hydrogen can do for not only the mitochondria, but for the metabolism. So it's really amazing, actually, because she lost a ton of weight and changed nothing. So hydrogen really starts to reestablish that again. But ultimately, what I told her, and I've told many people, I'm like, when you start using hydrogen, if you're on high blood pressure medication or have blood pressure issues, please monitor your blood pressure, because what happens is the body starts working correctly again. And if your blood pressure lowers because of the hydrogen and you're taking a pharmaceutical to also lower it, now you end up with really low blood pressure. And I've seen people get off of blood pressure medication many times. I can't even count how many times at this point. Other concerns have been, this was an interesting one too. It's one of my very first people that I worked with who had diabetes. And same thing with diabetes. We noticed through this particular person who had type 1 diabetes, she was realizing there's so much hydrogen. Now, ironically, she started with the bottles and the pills. And she said they weren't really doing anything. She goes, this is not really working. She almost gave up on hydrogen. She found me in the video. She says, I'm going to try what this guy's saying, this Japanese equipment. She got on that and she started noticing that for so much hydrogen being consumed, it was equivalent to 1 unit of insulin. And so she started realizing this connection. It was crazy. I released the video. She's one of my testimonial videos. Her doctor couldn't believe the results. He started tracking everything. He goes, I want you to show me everything that you're eating, take pictures of your glucometer readings, like everything, for almost half a year. And she went without using any insulin. And she's type 1 diabetic.
Wow.
And by the time he saw this, he was like, this is impossible. He goes, what are you doing? How are you doing this? This is crazy. How are you accomplishing this? And then she goes, there's this guy on YouTube. And the doctor was like, no way. There's no way. This is completely impossible. He said, there's no way there's some guy on YouTube showing you how to do this, because if there was, he said, this is literally worthy of a Nobel Prize. He goes, what you're doing here should be impossible, and yet I'm witnessing it. And so apparently I've done the impossible many times and still nobody knows who I am. There's very few people who know who I am. It's just totally bonkers. I mean, you probably didn't even know who I was till recently.
Well, the good thing about being on a podcast with literally thousands and thousands of listeners is that heaps of people will know who you are. So, and on that note, where can people find you online? Like, where are we sending people? Like, you've mentioned YouTube a few times. Like, tell people where they can find you.
Well, if people really want to, they can find me on YouTube. That's where I put all my always latest and best stuff. You can find me on Instagram. I put some stuff there. They don't allow long videos there, really. You can find me on Rumble, and you can find me on Twitter, otherwise known as X, and Instagram. Usually I tell people, honestly, it's really best to subscribe to all of them if you can, because I've been attacked a lot. And if any one of my platforms goes down, you're going to find me again, because it'll be hard to find me unless you're connected to one of those other platforms. But ultimately, YouTube is where I have like a whole library of information there, and it's all free. I'm always trying to give everything away for free. That's the commitment and the promise I made, because when I was sick, I basically made a prayer to God, as we often do when we're at our low point.
Yeah.
And I just said, please guide me, please help me figure out how to overcome these problems. And I assume that if you can help me overcome my problems, that it'll probably help others. And man, I don't know what happened, but within a week's time, it felt like a little light bulb went off in my head, and everything started coming like almost easy to me. And I started figuring out all these protocols, and I'm still shocked when I see what they do. I mean, the Parkinson's guy is the most recent one, but it just blows my mind because physicians are just telling me, they're like, I could never achieve this. How are you doing this? They have a hard time believing it, but they're the ones who witness it when it's their patients. There was a girl, not that I know you got to go, but this poor girl was like 26 years old. And I won't say how this happened to her, but she had a stroke at that young of an age. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
This poor girl couldn't walk, couldn't feed herself, couldn't talk, couldn't dress herself. I mean, she was an absolute mess. The doctors tried to fix her for about 2 years with literally zero success. And somebody happened to know who I was, and she got on my protocol, and she is now walking, talking, dressing herself, feeding herself. I put her as a testimonial in one of my videos, and her mother wrote a very heartfelt email, which almost makes me want to cry every time I think about it. But she said, thank you. You gave me my daughter back. And that really means a lot to me. All this matters a lot to me. That's why I don't sell out. And this is why I do what I do. And I offer everything that I can as much as I can for free, unless people want a direct consult. Like they're like, hey, I want you to guide me through everything. And then unfortunately, I wish I was super rich and I could do it all for free, and I would, but I do have to charge for such things just because it's very time consuming to help people on an individual level. But I do, because I know what it's like to suffer medically or see people who you care about suffer medically, and it just ruins your life.
Yeah.
So it's been a really wild road. I never thought I'd be doing this.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be a race car driver, by the way, not a health guru.
Oh man, I race go-karts.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's, I tried out for Team Honda. I was offered a position with them.
Wow.
I was a pretty decent driver. I don't think I was going to be the best in the world, but I probably would have been maybe top 100. And I ended up going a very different route of my life. And so this is what I've been doing now, just to help people. I've been doing it forever, though. But I've been doing this already for like a decade, believe it or not. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, I'll put all of the links down in the show notes below. So for anybody that wants to scroll down or find you on social media, and for anybody who's not sure what Rumble is, it's kind of like YouTube, but if you want to stay out of the reach of government and big pharma. So if you've got a rebellious edge, and a lot of people that listen to this show probably do, being on Rumble for video content's a good idea. Man, it's been so great having you here. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to jump into our last couple of minutes for the Real Talk segment. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if people are searching for me, either type in Uprising 144K or try to look for the Hydrogen Man. That's how you would find me, those two names. But all right, let's go into your next section.
Awesome, man. The Real Talk segment. Let's do it. So I've got a couple of questions. Rapid fire is the vibe, and then we'll carry it out at the end. Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
So what's something that you believe now that made you laugh about 10 years ago?
That I didn't think what I ate mattered. I should just eat whatever.
What's one habit you'd be embarrassed to admit that you still have?
That I still have? Oh, I've changed my habits so much. What habit do I still have? Gosh, I've changed so much. I can't, I still like girls.
Me too. All right, the next one is, what's one supplement, habit, or wellness trend that you think is overhyped?
Oh God, all these crazy supplements, really. I think even doing hydrogen the wrong way, I think is very much overhyped also. Yeah, but yeah, just a ton of supplements. I think you should be getting your nutrients from your food. That's what the science shows anyway. The body reacts better to food, some pill. So I don't know. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but I guess that would be it.
What's a rabbit hole topic that you think more people should explore?
Water. The cleanliness of your water and the cleanliness of your air. Both of those, I think, are probably one of the most important things for living a long time. And they've colluded both badly in a major way. So clean your water, guys, please, especially if you have kids. Oh my gosh, it's too important for children.
In 20 years from now, what do you want to be known for?
Just somebody who cared about people a ton. I literally, anything for the betterment of people. I believe so much in happiness. And I believe that the way to achieve happiness is by being good to one another and loving one another on every level. Because for example, if I had a water filtration company, I want the best water filter because I care about people. If I had a supplement company, for example, I would want to make the best supplements, even if it's more expensive, because I care about people. If people are in good health and you're being good to them, they're going to be good to you. And then happiness makes the whole world go around. And when people are not good to each other, oh my gosh, it's a cascade of negativity. And I don't think anybody likes that. So that's just something that I really believe in.
And finally, if everything you've ever said was deleted, what's one sentence that you want to leave people with?
Purity and love.
That's easy.
I mean, yeah. I mean, high purity of everything and real sincere love in all its shapes and forms. Those two things are just so important in my life. And I think they can transform anybody's life, both psychologically, emotionally, and even physically. It's all very important.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. This has been fascinating. And I know people are going to get a lot out of this and going to go digging into your world and discovering the benefits of this. And yeah, there's a lot of sick people that need your help. So thanks for doing the work you do.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, likewise.